So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Welcome to the Connecting with Coincidence radio show with Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, bringing together the world's synchronicity experts to help you use meaningful coincidences to develop spiritually, psychologically, and practically. For more information, put Connecting with Coincidence into your web browser to find the book, website, Psychology Today blog, YouTube channel, and Facebook page. And now, here is the host of the Connecting with Coincidence radio show, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD.
Yes. I am Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, and this is Connecting with Coincidence. Welcome to the show. Now, let's talk about one of my favorite ideas, the idea for this month. When you tear the web of ordinary reality, coincidences come flying in. Yeah, think about that. When your life changes abruptly through sickness, vacation, psychedelics, major loss, major gain, coincidences are more likely to appear. Test that out yourself. Pay attention to that. And have you ever found a romantic partner in the midst of lots of coincidences? Happens a lot. Happens frequently. The intense emotions of the synchronicity accelerate romantic feelings, deepening the connection between the lovers. But watch out. There is danger here. If you believe all these coincidences mean the relationship is meant to be, then think again. Think again. I wrote the lyrics for a song called All These Coincidences. In that story, she thought it was for eternity. Reality brought a good year followed by a very bad year and then a breakup. There's more to relationships than those wonderful synchronicities. I encourage you to sharpen your sensitivity to coincidences and to examine their potential uses and explanations. Read my book, Connecting with Coincidence, and learn along with me. Synchronicity spoken here. Our guest today is Dr. Larry Dossey. Larry is an internal medicine physician, former chief of staff of Medical City Dallas Hospital, and former co-chairman of the panel on mind-body interventions, National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine, National Institutes of Health. He is executive editor of the peer-reviewed journal Explore, the Journal of Science and Healing. He is the author of 13 books on the role of consciousness and spirituality in health, which have been translated into many languages around the world. His most recent book is One Mind, How Our Individual Mind is Part of a Greater Consciousness and Why It Matters. Welcome to the show, Larry. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Bernie. It's a delight to be with you.
Now, I want to start with a very basic question, not so easy. What is the relationship between synchronicity and one mind?
Well, I think they're very much related, and as a matter of fact, that was one of the reasons why I was happy to be on your show about coincidences and synchronicities. For me, the idea of the one mind is not modern. It really goes back 2,000 or 3,000 years, certainly to Hindu literature with the Akashic records and ideas of that sort, to say nothing of the fact that, and the 20th century, there were some Nobel Prize-winning physicists who affirmed this idea that if you dig deep enough, what you find is not a bunch of 7 billion individual minds on the face of the earth, but you find one mind which is made up of fundamental awareness, fundamental consciousness. I think this is the substrate that makes synchronicities and coincidences possible, because it suggests that there is some sort of communion between so-called individual minds, and it just creates the fertile backdrop for these sorts of things to occur. We share thoughts at a distance. This has been confirmed by any number of experiments over the years. And also we share thoughts immediately without the passage of time. All this suggests that consciousness is united between people, that it can't be segmented and confined to individual brains and bodies. And for me, this is one of the reasons we ought to pay attention to synchronicities and coincidences.
Well, let's talk about the coincidence you begin your recent article into Kun with about a pair of twins and their telesomatic, or what I call simulpathic experience.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up. I have a personal interest in that story because I happen to be an identical twin, and and I'm married to a twin, by the way.
Identical or not?
No, fraternal. Uh-huh. My wife is a fraternal twin. But we've had these sorts of experiences. So the incident that you're referring to is one that took place in Spain back in the 1970s. And it became quite famous. It had to do with 4-year-old twin girls, identical twin girls. And one day the father was going to take them off to see the grandparents, who were tens of kilometers away. But one of the little girls didn't want to go. She wanted to stay home with her mother and help her mother with household chores. So you've got one twin girl going off to the grandparents and one staying home. Unfortunately, the little girl who stayed home to help her mom with chores touched a red-hot iron and immediately erupted in a second-degree burn, a big blister on one part of her hand. As it turned out, at the same time, at the grandparents' house, miles and miles away, the other little girl erupted in an identical blister on the same hand, the same part of the hand, and the news of this got out, and they became quite famous locally. There was a team of psychologists from the University of Madrid that descended on the house and did all sorts of tests on these little girls with the permission of the parents, and it seemed that they had this uncanny ability to register each other's feelings and even register it in physical signs and symptoms, such as this second-degree burn. So this is one of the classic examples that has cropped up from time to time in this literature. Not all identical twins experience this sort of thing. The research shows that only about 30% do, and I think that this is compelling evidence that consciousness connects us across space and time, sometimes in these instances where it's not very pleasant, such as in this burn.
I've got a metaphor for that in my book, Connecting with Coincidence. Two twins that were joined at the head, and had some filament, I think, between their thalami, which is deep in the brain that connects many different parts of the brain, and that this connection made something like that happen. So if one of them tasted something she didn't like, the other one had a bad taste in her mouth.
Well,
and that was a concrete, specific connection. You can see how that might happen, and that became for me a metaphor for the two twins, the pair of twins you're talking about, that there's a link that is not as concrete, not as fleshy, but still there's a link. And I wonder how if you go along with that metaphor, how you conceptualize that link in the greater mind, or in the one mind.
Well, I think we really can't typify this and explain it classically and mechanically, anatomically, because obviously there's no anatomic connection when they're miles and miles apart. I think we have to resort to some explanations that have enormous potential to have explained this sort of thing that have come out of quantum mechanics or modern physics in recent years. I'm talking about a concept called non-locality, which makes possible something that is called entanglement. Entanglement is something that has been used to describe the ability of particles to respond to changes in one another, regardless of how far apart they are. It appears that although they're far apart and they're two distinct particles, when entanglement kicks in, you have one particle changing, and instantaneously, no matter how far apart, the other particle changes instantly and to the same degree. This is mind-boggling for people who bump into it for the first time.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'd be the first to say that this is not something that you arrive at common sense, because it defies common sense. But these changes that we talk about in terms of non-locality have three characteristics. These changes are immediate, they're instantaneous, they're not mediated by any passage of energy between the two, and they're what we call unmitigated. The connections don't get weaker as you increase the spatial separation of these things.
Yeah.
I just have to say that this requires a new way of thinking. And it isn't easy, and that's why quantum mechanics continues to baffle people who are wedded to a classical way of looking at things.
Isn't that comparing the twin with the hand burn to the entanglement? Isn't that reasoning by metaphor or by analog?
Of course it is. I'd be the last person to say that human entanglement, like we see in those twins, is made possible by something going on at their subatomic level where protons and electrons and photons live. We don't know that.
We're coming. Let's continue that in the next segment, because this is this kind of reasoning is very important to me. You're listening to Connecting with Coincidence with your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. That's me on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, and our guest today is Dr. Larry Dossey, the author of One Mind.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, Keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light. The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com.
Yeah. Welcome back to CC with BB with your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, and that is me. And our guest today is Larry Dossey, MD, and we are talking about one mind and particularly interested in reasoning by analogy. And we just talked about quantum entanglement as having some kind of way of understanding a pair of twins having the same physical thing happen to them at a distance from each other. So please, it's an analogy. It's a compelling analogy. It's two things having the same thing happen at the same time. That's what's parallel, but they're so different as well. So how do we bridge that analogical gap?
Well, I'm not sure we can bridge it. I've been one of the people who has held back and I just sort of fundamentally resist explaining human experiences in terms of what our electrons and subatomic particles are doing. As far as we know, there isn't any sort of feeling or emotional component that goes on at the subatomic level. So how in the world is it possible for these twins to have these emotionally close experiences at a distance on the basis of what their subatomic particles are doing? I'm not sure you can explain human in terms of subatomic factors. And
yet you use the quantum entanglement as kind of an answer to the question about how it works between the two twins.
Well, what I do is to say that humans are entangled, non-locally entangled, and so are subatomic particles that have been in contact and then are separated. Whether or not you can explain one in terms of the other, I just don't think we know yet. I think that's pushing things a bit too far in terms of our present knowledge.
I do too.
People love to do this.
Yeah, they do.
Because it gives them something to hang on to in terms of reason and logic. But I say go slow. We don't know that.
Yet when you talked about the twins, you talked about the non-locality of subatomic particles as if, in the way you were saying it, and if I hadn't asked you about it, you would have continued to say, oh, that non-locality has something to do with what happened between the two twins. But now that we're talking about it, we get down into it, and you're more careful about making that connection.
Well, I certainly want to be careful, and I think in my writings I've bent over backwards to do that. I think it's fair to mention the possibilities that physicists have.
Yeah. No, I love the metaphor, and I have it in my book too for a different reason. But I've had to think about it kind of the way I'm thinking about it with you, and that's why I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about it, because I think it starts to lose air. Because what you said was that humans are entangled, and I think that's true. Whether it's the right, because the twins are evidence for that, as are many other telepathic, telesomatic, simulpathic experiences. They are evidence of some kind of connection. And I like reasoning by metaphor too. I think in this digital age, we're getting too much zeros and ones. I like thinking in I like thinking in metaphors or analogs. I think we're losing that. And the analog I prefer is that those twins that were joined at the head, because there they were experiencing something like the twins with the burned hands, but right now and quite regularly, because they had a connection that could be seen. That metaphor, I can go up a little higher into the one mind and see some kind of tunnel between those two minds at a distance.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page with this. I could express it in a different way.
Please do. Please do.
People, human beings were having non-local, entangled experiences millennia before quantum mechanics was even invented. So quantum mechanics is a latecomer as far as a potential explanation for these sorts of things. People used to talk about spiritual influences, right, and theological explanations were given for all this sort of thing. But then with the materialistic stampede that occurred in the particularly 1800s, everybody wanted to explain human experiences in terms of matter, what's going on in the body materially. I just can't buy that. I don't think that that's an accurate reading of where we are scientifically. But I do think this: we have a choice. We can say that these things just don't happen. They're fraudulent. They're fake, and people say that because they want to hang on to the old materialistic view that prohibits all these things. You can't have these entangled experiments if you are a materialist. They just don't. They're just simply not permitted.
Correct.
So I think the honest thing to do is to look at the studies. Are we fooling ourselves? Do these things really happen or not?
Yeah.
It's okay to defer an explanation. We do that all the time, as you know, in medicine.
Have to.
To this day, nobody really understands how general anesthetics work, but we don't stop using them because we don't understand how they work. So it's the same thing with these entangled, distant things that go on between twins and other people who are emotionally close. Sometimes we just have to live with irrationality and the lack of an explanation, and that's okay.
We need you to talk a little louder or closer to the phone.
Okay.
Would you tell us about that first year you were practicing internal medicine and you had that vivid dream, please?
Yeah, well, I was, minding my own business as the board-certified internist, and one night things took a different turn. I had what I considered at the time one of the most vivid dreams that I've ever had in my life. I started to wake my wife up and tell her about it, but I thought, this is so crazy. Don't do that. So the dream was that one of my colleagues, a cardiologist, had a 4-year-old son who cropped up in this dream, and he was lying on an examining table, and there was a technician trying to do something with his head. I assumed that she was trying to do an EEG, an electroencephalogram, a brainwave tracing, and this kid wasn't buying it. He was really upset. Actually, he went berserk. He wouldn't cooperate. He was yelling, screaming, crying. And there was a parent of his standing at the bedside trying to console him, but none of this was working.
All in the dream, let me say. This is all in the dream.
This is all in the dream. Finally, in the dream, the technician throws up her hands and says, "I quit." And she turned around and walked away. And that was the dream. And I went to work, made rounds, and saw patients that morning in my office. And at lunch, I was sitting with the father of this little boy, the cardiologist who was my colleague. And we were just chatting, and all of a sudden, the wife, the mother of this little boy, walks in carrying this child. And he was fussy, he was crying, and he was obviously upset. And she proceeded to tell her husband my dream, how they had just come from the laboratory and had to abandon this EEG trial because this kid just went crazy. And I couldn't believe it. I dreamt this thing about 24 hours prior to the unfolding of it, and after she left, I told my colleague, the cardiologist of the father, that we need to chat. And I asked him if there was any way in the world I could have known that they were going to attempt an EEG the following day, and he said, "Don't be silly." And then I told him my dream, and he was upset, because he and I both realized at that moment, if my dream were true, then the world didn't work the way we had been taught.
Amen, brother. Yeah.
I was really disturbed by this whole thing. I mean, and at that point in my life, I didn't go around having paranormal experiences. But, within the space of about 3 months, I had 2 more minor precognitive dreams, as we call them. And I thought, I need to find out what's going on here. I began to read extensively in the paranormal literature, came away extremely impressed by the precision of the experiments and their implications. I began to be open about this with my patients, and my patients began to open up to me, and they began to tell me their dreams of this sort. So this really influenced my way of thinking about how the world works and how to relate to patients.
You said and how to relate to patients. You've implied something about relating to patients that I am doing more and more of, is telling my patients some of my personal experiences that might be relevant to them, which we're not supposed to do, particularly in psychiatry and psychotherapy with the Freudian background, but it really helps. Patient yesterday said, when you tell me your stories, I think about things and learn things about things that we're not talking about in here.
Yeah. Well, you probably know this, but there is an emerging literature among psychiatrists about paranormal phenomena that happen in the therapeutic process with patients. And I know one psychiatrist who has written a paper about how her psychotherapy patients begin to have dreams about her and tell her things that there is no way in the world that they had any business knowing about.
Yeah, we're coming to the end. We're coming to the end of this segment, Larry, and I want to get into that more, because there's some of what you're talking about I may not know about. So I'd like to hear what you're picking up. And the most important thing is you were transformed by those experiences. You're listening to Connecting with Coincidence. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, and our guest is Larry Dossey, and we're getting there, baby.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Yeah. Welcome back to CC with BB. I'm Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, and our guest today is Larry Dossey. And Larry has had some precognitive experiences early in his practice of medicine that transformed the way he thinks about reality. And he, like a good student of experience, examined the data that might back up what he experienced and came out with a new view of the world, which is what we're talking about here. But one of the key mentions that Larry did was like he's learned how to be able to talk about his own experiences as a physician with his patients. And Larry, you were telling me about a psychiatrist who has patients who dream things that the patient has dreams about the psychiatrist that the patient couldn't know, just like you dreamt about that child.
Well, I think that it's important to acknowledge that these ways of knowing occur in two directions. Physicians can know things paranormally about their patients, and the patients can respond. I'll give you one example of that. I was in my office one morning, and one of my old-time patients, one of my favorite patients, who was a female attorney in Dallas, came and knocked on my door. She was really upset. And she said, we have to talk. She said, I had a dream last night, and I know I have cancer of the ovary. And she really was distressed. So we did a pelvic examination. It was absolutely normal. She said, I can't stop here. She said, the dream was too vivid. I just can't let it go. So I sent her down to the x-ray department for a sonogram of the pelvis. And actually, the technician, the radiologist, had a good laugh. He said, I've never done a test on the basis of a dream before. This is my first. And he made fun of her. So after about 15 minutes, he was back in my office, and he was white as a sheet. And I said, what's wrong with you? And he said, well, it's that patient you sent. And I said, what did you find? And he said, well, it's like she said. She said she had 3 little white spots on her left ovary, and that's what I found. And he couldn't handle it rationally, and I had to poke him a little bit. And I said, "Oh, you mean you found that her dream was correct?" And he didn't think that was very funny. But the woman was spot on. She did have 3 little white spots on her left ovary, but she got her diagnosis wrong, I'm happy to say. These were just ovarian cysts, and they were benign. But this woman had a diagnostic dream. Since that event, there has erupted a literature of studies now looking at women's dreams of breast cancer. The go-to person here, Bernie, is Larry Burke.
Yes,
who is a radiologist who has assembled these cases, and it's just fascinating stuff.
It is. This is the second physician or medical person that you've told me about who've been blown out by something that you're involved with paranormally. So I'm assuming that this has happened many times also with you and other medical people.
Well, it has, and some of the experiences have been really unexpected. Just as an example, I was giving an invited talk to a group of doctors here in Santa Fe who had come here for an update in internal medicine, and this was a Harvard Medical School sponsored conference, and there were hundreds of docs. So they asked me to talk about something unusual. I'd finished writing a book on...
you could do that. They picked the right guy for that.
Well, I thought so. I'd written a book on premonitions, and I just finished the manuscript, so I was really, geared up for this, and I told him my experiences of precognitive dreams and so on. And, you know, sometimes when you're giving a talk, you have this feeling, this isn't going over well.
Yeah.
And they're not buying this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I had that feeling. I thought, well, they'll never ask me back again. And after I'd made a fool of myself, telling them about my dreams, we had the Q&A session, and I was shocked. They began to tell me their dreams. One female internist stood up in the middle of this group of hundreds of doctors, and she said, well, I get numbers in my dreams. She said, I dream the specific values of my patient's lab tests before I even order the tests.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and it went from there. And every one of these doctors, when they would stand up and say their thing, they would begin with an identical statement. They would say, look, I've never told anybody this before in my life, but, you know, and then they would proceed. And I really thought about that a lot. And I think that in that situation, there was no judgment. I'd already, you know, made a fool of myself, so they were safe. They knew I wasn't going to lecture them about being silly, and it just came forth. And out of that, I decided that this paranormal dreams, non-local ways of knowing stuff, it's probably one of the best kept secrets out there. And a lot of doctors just aren't talking about this.
Well, I'm getting the impression, Larry, that within the tent of medicine, you are an agent provocateur.
Well, that's one of the kinder things people have said about me.
You're making people have to look at their own experiences, which is what I do with coincidences, and make their judgments about what that tells them about the nature of reality.
Sure. I think it's liberating, you know.
It is.
I'm sure we could have a conversation about how it is liberating, what the payoff is, why we should pay attention to that. But I think it's intellectually and psychiatrically dishonest to just sit on this stuff. I think it really demands that we talk about it because it expands our notion of who we are.
And I don't know how to get me with what I'm writing into psychiatry again. I did a lot about psychotherapy. I had a nationally recognized psychotherapy training program that got used a lot and still is being used someplace. But how to be able to find a way into the minds of psychiatrists who are doing this, something like this too, who have experiences like this, but they don't tell people about them for just the reasons we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I want to, as we get to the end of that's another question, but I want to go back to you and your own personal experiences. I haven't had the pleasure of talking with an identical twin who is able to recognize how connected 30% or so of identical twins are. And then married to a fraternal twin where it's also going to happen probably, but not as frequently. Has stuff like this happened between you and your twin?
Yes, it used to be routine. When we were growing up, it's become less routine and less frequent as we've gotten older, and I don't know why that has happened. But my brother and I used to have these sorts of interchanges all the time. Growing up, we didn't know that you weren't supposed to have these things. We just referred to these experiences. We just called it twin stuff, and we laughed about it, and we had no idea that this was prohibited in science, and we just played with it. You know, we would have these long distance exchanges of factual information, and I would know what he was feeling at a distance. And
how did you know it was? How did you look inside of yourself to be able to make the distinction between your own thought feelings and his?
Well, we would compare notes later.
But I mean, you could compare notes later, but in the moment, I'm doing this with somebody now where a couple of times I just had the feeling she was thinking about me, and then I saw the email, and it's a figure ground thing. Somehow the figure emerges further from the ground in my own consciousness than the regular ground of my regular thought feeling things.
I can only say that it's a feeling thing. Certainly, I didn't go through any analytical, rational stuff to try to unravel it as it happened when we were kids. It's just sort of something we had a sense for. That's about all I can say about it.
Yeah, you could recognize that feeling inside of you that this was about your brother and not you.
Yeah, exactly. This gets to a question: if we experience this one mind, unitary consciousness, do we just get swallowed up, and are we unable to differentiate ourselves from all the other people out there? And the answer to that is just decidedly no. We retain our sense of individuality, but it's compounded with a sense of unity and connectedness. If that seems mysterious, I just plead that's the way it works.
Yeah, and this word connectedness is where I am. That's what I study, that I use some subsets of coincidences to try to understand the geography, the cartography of this interconnectedness. Just how does it work? How does it look? What does it look like? And it's still, we can say that we can't know that because we don't have words for it, but we need to. Michael Grosso's big in making up. It says we got to come up with new words, and I think he's right. But we've coming to the end of this segment, and just where we're going to go, trying to understand the words for this. I think it'll be fun to do. Good. You're listening to Connecting with Coincidence. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, on the X Zone Broadcast Network. Our guest is Larry Dossey, and we are trying to figure out, for my sake, what the great mind looks like.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. SIMULTV.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a SimulTV.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about SimulTV.com. She even spelled it out for me.
SIMULTV.com, sonny boy.
SIMULTV.com.
SIMULTV.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
SIMULTV.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about SimulTV.com. SIMULTV.com.
Welcome back to CC with BB. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. We're talking to Larry Dossey and trying to figure out how things work. And I'm an analytical kind of guy as well as a space cadet. And I can share both the idea of looking at one mind and experiencing one mind because I feel it sometimes. I can experience it. But also look at the data that show that, like with Larry and his brother, they are connected. It's like the old telephone between minds or radio. Upton Sinclair and the radio between minds, that they can't help using the metaphors of the time to try to understand stuff that's kind of out there on the fringe. So I can do great mind, one mind. I can do the twin telepathy or twin connection, and then I try to make the connection between them by imagining the connection. And I hypothesize something that called the psychosphere, which is our mental atmosphere, and I keep it to here on Earth because things are complicated enough, and try to be able to say that we are immersed not only in a greater mind or a one mind, but also in a subset which is around Earth and which is the psychosphere. And it's through this psychosphere that these connections are established and break down. That's what's interesting to me. Make the connections, break down. Sometimes you have them. You and your twin had it tighter. Now it's less. Why is that? So I want to try to take data like that and study how these interconnections function.
Well, one of the metaphors that has sort of risen to the top among people who fiddle with these ideas is that of the hologram. This is the metaphor that the great physicist, the great late physicist David Bohm used to try to understand how these connections work. A hologram is something where if you take one piece of it and illuminate it in a certain way, it reconstitutes the whole thing.
Yeah.
In other words, the whole pattern of the entire hologram is somehow encoded in each little part of the hologram itself.
Yeah.
So this is the whole and part relationship that may help some people reason through this. I'm suspicious of metaphors. I must say, it used to be the telephone, the telegraph, and one psychiatrist I read says that now holograms are fancy, and they're the go-to metaphor for a lot of people. And he said, who knows what rattle we will be shaking in the future to explain this. So that sort of expresses my feeling about metaphors. I think we ought to use them and suck as much juice out of them as they'll give us, but we ought to not settle our terms with reality prematurely.
Oh, no. I know. I think the metaphors are stair steps towards the one mind, towards understanding the bigger thing, but see how it functions with us earthlings trying to expand our minds into it. There's another metaphor maybe you haven't heard of, the mental internet.
Huh. No, I haven't. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's
before the break, you said that we wanted to ask what this connectivity looks like.
Yes.
And I think that language may need to be changed. I'm not sure that we need to focus on so much what it looks like as what it feels like. Good. And I think the feeling component of this is just crucial because
yes.
I have found that people who really genuinely tap into this dimension that we're calling the one mind have a certain character. I mean, they seem to be happier. They seem to be more prone toward compassion and empathy for others and love. And also, statistics are beginning to show that not only do they have emotional components, they're actually healthier. They have a lower incidence of illness. They have a lower incidence of all the major diseases. So I think that we ought to speak to some of the practical benefits of tapping into this dimension of reality. You know, I don't know if you have ever met a savant, what used to be called idiot savants, but now they're called people who have savant syndrome. And these people are able to know things that are just unaccountable. Most of them cannot read. They can't acquire information like the rest of us do. But yet they come up with these abilities that are just astonishing. Nobody knows how this works. I think this is indirect evidence that the one mind, being infinite, constitutes a kind of reservoir of information that some of these savants tap into. I can see no other possible explanation for how they know what they know. This is just one practical implication of this idea of a unitary consciousness.
As a physician, you are also talking about the health-giving benefits of tuning in, being part of, recognizing, being part of the one mind. How do you try to tell that to patients and other physicians?
Actually, I pretty much don't. Doctors like randomized controls data and studies and so on. And so I when I talk to groups of doctors about these things, I come armed to the teeth with
data.
With studies, you know, p-values and all that sort of thing. And I talk to them about at least 6 areas in which people around the world in laboratories have repeated these findings, and in each of these areas there's odds against chance of around 1 billion to 1, and if you combine all of these areas, what you come up with is odds of against chance of 10 to the 54th power against 1. So that gets their attention, and then I go into some of these categories and tell them what these look like, such as precognition, the Global Consciousness Research Project, and random number generator influence, remote viewing studies, precognition studies, Gonfield studies, and on and on. By the time I get through with them, they're sort of dizzy and confused, but that's sort of the point. I just want them to know that we're not making this stuff up, and if they're serious, there is hardcore data that they can investigate. That's all I do, you know, and then I back off, and you know, it's take it or leave it. I don't ever try to sell this stuff to any of my colleagues.
If your experience is any example, you can show all the data that you want, all the studies you want, but if they don't have their own personal experience of it, it's not going to mean much.
I think that that's exactly right, and I think that this is, in the end, like you say, it's a matter of personal experience. It's not what these things look like, it's what it feels like for the individual.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, as that talk I gave to the Harvard doctors, and I thought it didn't go over very well, I was shocked that this is so prevalent among doctors, and they're just not talking about it because actually they're afraid. They're afraid of their reputation, and they just don't want to go public about their own experiences. Yeah,
it's true. I've met a medical student here at the University of Virginia who's just amazed to be able to talk with me because I'm the only medical person she's met that is into higher consciousness.
Well, there you go. You know, I think one of the services that you and I provide for our colleagues is to give them a safe space so that they are not fearful about honoring their own experiences.
Yeah.
Because that's what it amounts to sooner or later in terms of this going mainstream in the medical profession. Do people honor their own experiences? If we could get a yes answer to that, then we wouldn't have so many arguments about the validity of these things.
We're getting close to the end of this, and I wonder if you could make a connection between the increasing use of psychedelics and perhaps having direct experiences by physicians.
Well, I'm a child of the 60s, and I've had my own experiences with psychedelics, and I can only say that it certainly is a pathway and an opening toward a greater reality. That's been my experience. I'd be the first to acknowledge that psychedelics can be abused.
Oh, yeah.
And one has to be very careful about this. I don't go around recommending drug pathways for any of this understanding. I think there are other pathways, but people experiment. I mean, that's what our society does with drugs. And I know so many people who have, in retrospect, said things like, LSD, mescaline opened me up to something I was not aware of, and then they went on to develop their own spiritual work and were quite disciplined about it. So I think it is a pathway.
Well, it's a drug which doctors like, and it's getting used more and more, like in places like Johns Hopkins, for a variety of problems, people with intractable depression, as well as people who are dying, and other things around the country. So the drug thing, creating mystical experiences in front of doctors, may be another way that doctors will get exposed to these ideas.
Well, let me just toss this in. Last week, there was a major article in the New York Times using ketamine in suicidal patients, and the psychiatrist who wrote this article, he was an ER doc, and he said that this can be absolutely life-saving in people who have survived their first suicide attempt. So
let's end it there, because ketamine's another good discussion, but we have to end. Larry, it's wonderful talking with you. You've been listening to Connecting with Coincidence with your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. We've been talking with Larry Dossey. It's been a great conversation, Larry. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net. If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.